Hi, it's Anne from Unity Physiotherapy and Wellbeing. I thought I'd share some things with you around movement because many things influence our movement. Some are obvious and some less so. So things that influence movement include living with persistent pain, fatigue, illness, injuries. They are all really obvious. And then things like anxiety, depression, chronic stress, trauma, previous experiences in general, beliefs in general, beliefs about pain, beliefs about movement and exercise and physical activity. The things that we get told we should and shouldn't be doing with movement or physical activity or ways to sit. And there isn't a right or a wrong way to sit. And we know that from the research that sitting a certain way does not cause back pain. Other things that influence movement are the way that we relate to ourselves, others, and the world around us. And actually, our movement and our posture expresses quite a lot about how we're relating to ourselves and the world around us. Other things influence movement include movement habits, our work, the physical activities and exercise we engage in. Many things influence movement, and it's important to remember. And it's also important to consider, like right back to early childhood, in fact earlier than that, to when we're born, when we come into the world, and even earlier than that really, movement is one of the first skills that we have, that we use to get our needs met when we're born, to express our needs, to interact with the world. And our movement, our motor skills, along with sensory skills and other things, develop as we age. And these are impacted by many things, including in early childhood, the environment we're in, and if we feel safe enough to play and learn and explore fully, and how we're related to too. And as I say then, as we progress through life, different experiences impact the movement habits we develop, the postural habits we develop, the way in which we move, the variety of movement we have available to us. One of the things that happens is we go to school and we are taught and told that we need to sit still to learn. We need to sit a certain way. And there's a number of issues here, is that we need to move regularly. We're not meant to be still all the time. Stillness is important, but we're meant to be moving regularly. Motion is lotion. We do not need to sit a certain way. As I've already mentioned, there is no evidence currently that this causes problems. It does if we keep sitting still a long time, but that is not sitting a certain way, and that's different. So we need to be moving regularly, and movement helps us learn. So it's important to remember that. So we start to get given rights and wrongs, shoulds and shouldn'ts, ways that we are taught that we need to move, to sit, to exercise. All of these things start to develop. We start getting given beliefs about these things, and we create them from the information we're told. And then when things happen in life, and we have injuries, trauma, when we start living with persistent pain, all of these things impact the way in which we move, how safe we feel in movement, our confidence in movement, our trust in our body. And when people come and work with me, say somebody comes to work with me with persistent pain, what is really common is the loss of trust, or the significantly decreased trust in the body, and the loss of confidence in the self and movement, and the decreased safety people feel in usually a variety of movements, and it can relate to specific movements, but it's usually kind of a variety. And my approach is really an empowering one, because we lose that freedom and agency in movement, and that kind of flow and fluidity, and that gets really enhanced when living with something like persistent pain. So my approach is really to give people back that agency and that freedom. So it's really about exploring together, people having choices, understanding that there isn't a right or a wrong, that yes, there are times when certain movements are not appropriate, like with osteoporosis, like with certain acute injuries, like a fracture, and then for a period of time, like post certain surgeries and for a period of time. So there are times when certain things aren't appropriate, and yes, there are ways to make things more effective or principles to use, like with strength training, balance training, cardiovascular training, but there isn't a set right or wrong. And we start to unpick beliefs about movement and pain and exercise and physical activity and understand what variety of movement someone had available to them before living with persistent pain. What work were they doing? What exercise and physical activity were they engaging in? What were their earlier experiences with movement? What's meaningful to them? So we start to understand all of these different aspects that contribute to our movement, to our posture, which is not correlated with pain, but our posture is important in other ways, including how we're relating to ourselves and others. So we start to understand the different ways that we're relating to the world through movement, the different ways that we're approaching exercise and physical activity and movement, and then explore with a curiosity different movements from a place that feels safe enough for somebody. And everybody's starting point is different, and the way that we explore movement is different. And we're not only exploring movement in my work, because I'm qualified in lots of other things, including coaching and NLP. I've done lots of compassion training, meditation training, as well as my yoga teacher training, which included that. So there's lots of facets that we explore, but movement is not in a neat little box anyway. And so it's really important that we understand the multifactorial aspects that come into that, and then what happens when we end up with something like persistent pain or POTS or ME/CFS or long COVID or whatever else the condition is. So I guess what I am saying is it's really important that people get agency back, that they start to be able to get the freedom and ease back in movement, that we understand the many impacts on the way that we move, the way that we engage in movement, the way that we engage in exercise and physical activity. Really important to start to feel safe enough in movement again, to build confidence and trust in the body, and to remember that movement is not in a neat little box. So that was what I thought I'd share. I hope it's helpful, and do let me know your thoughts. I'd love to know. Take care.